agencies involved. This is a much larger thing than just sitting down and talking about the office of the head of state. But I want to say, we do have policy documents and legal frameworks. And I'd like to actually say we need to support the Attorney General's office to ensure the proposed whistleblowing bill is in fact, transcended towards law so that it can add to the tools we have to fight corruption. But moving forward, I want to go back to the issue of people-centered interventions and say that much as we say corruption is stealing the dreams of our children, it is the citizens who need to be educated not to support the looters. At the highest level, when a parliamentarian or senior leader is accused of corruption and perhaps being prosecuted, isn't it the citizens of Kenya who are rallied to say, that is my member of parliament, that is my governor, let him free, haki yetu? The citizens need to know corruption is nothing to be proud of, and they should not vote in leadership that espouses corruption. This is something that we need to look twice at. What is the role of the citizen? And when we talk about the president's declaration or what he said last week, I want us to look again at the politics of it, because we are talking about people and politics. I'd like to say he actually has made a well-calculated statement with the calculation of the risk that it entails. The timing was absolutely, spot on. Parliament is going into recess. There is no way that he's interested in bringing down the whole house. Yet, if you ask many citizens, they will tell you that if elections were called, less than 30% of parliamentarians will go back. Unfortunately, Senator, Kenyans are not in love with their parliament. And that's the first interface they have to express what they want done as governors, if we're in the government. And I want to say, not only are citizens upset with parliament, so are the youth. So if at any time in the current status of our country, elections were called, let's say elections were called now, you can bet that the parliamentarians are on the wrong footing. Let's move forward. There were counter reprisals from parliament. But I want to say that whoever acts first, if elections were to take place today or this year or by early 2020,
I think we lost.
Yeah.
My
hand has been up.
Okay, maybe you can continue so that we can get back.
Exactly.
Dr. Just.
I just wanted to take exception with the comments of my good friend, Professor Gitile Naitule. And I can see Paul Achar is listening. Paul is my former neighbor. Paul's a great guy, a professional, a comms guy in this town. I want to take great exception, Dibal, with Prof's comments regarding small corruption. Dibal, there's nothing that has pained me, and I've been very public about this, than when you see a police officer in uniform, somebody whose job it is to enforce the constitution. A lot of people don't know that police is actually an acronym for public officer for law, investigations, and constitutional enforcement. A police officer in uniform, they look so pitiful. They follow matatus around and drivers around. They ask you for a bribe. They extend their dirty hands and beg in uniform. They are so absent-minded. They do not control, traffic in the right manner. They do not enforce the traffic act. They don't ensure when overspeeding doesn't happen. They just sit around and profile, and collect bribes. And so I really reject Dibal. The classification of this is just a small infraction compared to the big corruption happening in big government offices. While it is true grand corruption is a problem, Dibal, we cannot on this space excuse traffic corruption. We cannot justify, we cannot dismiss as nuisance, people that reject the whole aspect of corruption. It is a cancer on the society. It is embarrassing. It is so disgusting. It is backward. It is sickening, and it must be said. So, Professor Naituli, hapo na kukosoa kabisa ndugu. Dibal, back to you in studio. Thank you.
All right. I was trying to. I'm just calling Josephine there, if you had me, to find out what really happened. Thank you, Benji, so that we can continue with our train of thought. But I wanted just to maybe come to you. I don't know if we have Dr. Ignatius back, so that we can also hear his view from Dubai and what he had to say. He's also in the medical field. He will have maybe primed us on what was his perception on this. I see George Kegoro. George, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate as well. Professor Mashara Munene will mark you up in a moment also to contribute on this. But let's get to the issue, the heart of the matter. And I want to come to you that is Senator Cherargei. And the question I wanted to ask regarding what the president had said, looking at just the checks and balances, how will this really affect the relationship, and I mentioned this earlier, between the executive and the legislature moving forward? Because he needs the legislature, and we've seen all these executives really having it very difficult when they want to pass legislations in the Congress. There's so much, disharmony, and it is being fought. Do you think this will portend maybe a very acrimonious relationship between the executive and the legislature, from your own assessment? Senator Cherugay? Senator Cherugay, can you hear me? Maybe it's off for the mic for a little while. All right, let me just...
Yes, Dibal. I can hear you very well. I can hear you. Right?
So you had my question.
Can you repeat it again? Sorry.
I was just asking simply, what does this allegations from the president portend for the relationship between the legislature and the executive? Do you think it's going to drive a word chasm? Because at the end of the day, they need he needs the support.
Yeah, of the... I get your point. One, I agree with Josephine, the lady who made submissions that the fight against corruption should not be individualized. We should fight it as a united front, as Kenyans, the way we stood with our ambassadors during the Chan tournaments that was concluded. And Dibala, I forgot to say, I was also disappointed. I'm told this is how my new fans feel every weekend when they lose, but that is a story for another day. Secondly, I want to dissuade ourselves from making wild and even if you have a particular political persuasion or religion or tribe, let us be factual sometimes and objective so that we can, the problem, let us not use emotions to build the future of our country. Let us be objective. Let us be people who respect the rule of law so that this country can go far. Secondly, I want to assure you from where I sit as member of parliament. One, there is a principle of separation of powers. But that one does not mean that the three arms of government cannot work together. What we do is we complement each other. There can be no parliament without executive or judicial, because the executive implements, the parliament is lawmaking house, and judiciary interprets the law. So we are independent. We must coexist. And we must coexist with a principle of symbiotic relationship, of complementing each other. The bottom line, Dibal, is we are serving Wanjiku. All of us, the three arms of government, including private sector, including media, we are serving that Kenyan, that Wanjiku. Let me use that principle. Secondly, the relationship between executive and parliament will continue being cordial, because we need the policies and the law we pass in the House to be implemented and assented by the president and the national executive. So I can assure you from where I sit, the relationship between parliament, and I know I saw my colleagues today in Nairobi shouting horse because the people, they're operating the principle of the story of an hyena following a man. And the man was swinging the hand. The hyena thought that arm will fall off so that he can have something to eat. And I saw my colleagues today in some church in Nairobi, the ones that my brother Ndegwa calling them united oppositions, trying to cast aspersions and says now the relationship between the national as the parliament and the executive will deteriorate. And I know even after the statement that the president made, you saw the united opposition members of parliament trying to and corruption. You know what shocks me? The ball is funny. Corruption is not only about bribe taking or money or plundering resources. Corruption is even when you are elected by UDA and you start selling the agenda of DCP, it is corruption. When you are elected by ODM and you try to sell another agenda of another political party. So where I sit, I can assure you the ball and take it to the bank. The relationship between the president, executive with the parliament will continue being respectful, will continue complementing each other for the benefits of Kenyans. I know and I'm aware that even many bills that we have passed, including share bills, including reforms in education funding model, including budget making process, we are continuing to work closely with the national executive. And I am happy that we, as a parliamentary group, we normally have retreat with the national executive to discuss the issue of implementation of government programs. Even you saw the National Assembly leadership having a sitting with judiciary. They were sitting with the police and other independent commissions. They are sitting with the executive led by the PCS so that they can have a conversation going into the future. So I want to assure you, I don't see anything out of the blue. There is nothing to be alarmed about. And that is why we need to, in fact, the relationship between executive and parliament cannot deteriorate because we need now the information that the president shared with us in parliamentary group on who these members of parliament that are facing corruption allegations. And by the way, I forgot to tell this panel and distinguished ladies and gentlemen that there was a communication, and I know Debal, you are aware of the communication from the Speaker of the Senate that indicated as the Speaker of the Senate, the head of the Senate, and as the chairperson of parliamentary powers and privileges, he has not received any complaint against any senator. And it is unanswered. Anybody can retrieve. Number two, you saw the Speaker of the National Assembly saying that he has received some information on the conduct of members of parliament. So the question we needed to know whether is it corruption related or the general misconduct, including ethical misbehavior of some individual members of parliament. The bottom line is we don't need to do blanket condemnation. We don't need to make blanket statements. Let everybody carry their own cross. If you have violated the law, if you have committed criminal offenses, you should be adjudged. So, and I want to insist, I know going into the future, I want to say, I've had my colleagues saying, oh, the parliamentary group meeting was being called so that to discuss the sale of Kenya pipeline. I want to strongly reject such assertion. Because one, the BAL, I'm a member of United Democratic Alliance, a ranking member, a member of Kenya Kwanza. The agenda, the people who are making those wild allegations should ask us what was the agenda. Because the agenda, and I know Frederick might be aware, was one to discuss on the follow-up on the implementation of the NADCO report and presentation of the Secretariat on the 10-point agenda that was being signed between Kenya Kwanza and ODM after the engagement of broad-based. So I can confirm, these rumors that my brother is trying to peddle by saying he is aware, no one discussed anything. In fact, another agenda that was supposed to be discussed, the ban, was members of National Assembly really wanted to be on the agenda, was the entrenchment of national government constituency development fund, the constitutional amendment that they have brought before the Senate. The members of National Assembly wanted to put that agenda on the table, but it was not possible. So the agendas that we discussed, because it was in any way in public, so that we don't have our friends misleading the public, was the issue of the status of elimination of 10-point agenda of the NADCO report, that was presented by former Senator Agnesani, and the Secretariat shared their insights and requested for the support. Then the issue of corruption, and then we adjourned the meeting and until further notice. And I know going into the future and confirm that we are planning for a retreat for the broad-based stakeholders, government, so that we can sit and agree, so that we can see what we can do for this country. So it is not correct that on the table, and I want to correct my brother, the agenda and the BAL, let us be honest with Kenyans. The agenda of Parliament is determined by the House Business Committee chaired by the Speaker. The agenda of Senate is discussed at Senate Business Committee. So anything, and by the way, for the information of Ndegwa, as a point of information, the House Business Committee and the Senate Business Committee, the members of minority, or what we call opposition, you would want to say that, sit in that. In fact, Mbui, who is a close friend, Honorable Mbui of Kathiani, is a member of House Business Committee. So any agenda on the order paper in the National Assembly and the Senate is sanctioned by business committees that members of the minority, some of them who are in opposition or perceived they are now in United, sit in that committee. So the president or the former prime minister does not determine the order of business in any house. So let us stop this, and he knows very well. He's just saying this for the convenience of just appearing for popularity contest. So please, and that is why even in NATCO report, the BAL, in conclusion, we sat and we try to pass the laws that will assist in I have heard him alluding to the by-elections and elections. As a parliament, we have passed the elections amendment laws that will assist the easy management. And he knows, and I think at the article, is it 88 or 80, that any election must be verifiable, easy, and of course transparent, and with integrity and credibility. We have done that, and many other policies that we are putting in place, including the Tony issue of compensation against the extrajudicial killings that Kenyans have been killed, unfortunately, either by rogue police officers, was the follow-up on the compensation to families, the repatriations to businesses. Those are some of the things. And by the way, the country was peaceful. The country was peaceful for the last 3 weeks until the friend of Wakili came back into the country. So you cannot be just upstaging and setting up your own criminal enterprise. When it collapses on your face, you just make unsubstantiated and legal. So the BAL, to answer your question, in fact, if you want to measure the passionometer, the passion and the love and the complementarity of the functionality of both arms of government will continue to a notch higher for the benefit of ordinary Wanjiku. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Senator Gerard Gay, for those cogent comments. Maybe they will be challenged a little bit later. So I want just to, by the way, Javas Bigambo, you here, and it will be nice to just also hear from you, because now you're the vice chair of UDA, ODM, NADCO, implementing committee. It would be nice also to hear from you some of these comments that are being made here, the touching also at the core center of the Memorandum of Understanding. So I'll be happy to mic you up and just also hear your comments as well this evening. But I want just to, I don't know, Frederick, is your chance now? I think you've been minimal for a while. Yeah. You can
sure. Yeah, thank you so much, Dibal. I just want to respond to 2 quick issues and give my comments at the same time. I think people misunderstood the intention of the joint parliamentary group. But before that, allow me to respond to my good friend, Professor Gitile. He said that intention does not matter, but results matter. I just want to remind my good professor that, in governance principle, There's what we call rewarding leadership. And when you reward leaders, you must marry the intent with delivery. So therefore, the two come together. When you bring them together is when now you bring the impact, deliverability, and accountability. So you cannot do away with the intention. The intention of President William Ruto to fight corruption is acknowledged. And that's why we're discussing about it today. Secondly, my good friend Ndegwa made some very interesting remarks about Thursday, and we must challenge it. It must not go unchallenged. You know, Dibal, when the former deputy president came back from the US, all we could see was a political theater. And this was a calculated descent into chaos, because when he came back, we only saw not a hero, but a former deputy president who was not welcome as a triumphant statesman, but a violent and chaotic leader in a political theater that has mastered the art of strategic absence so that he can come back and do what he does best, which is chaos. So when my good friend Degwa says that that was a precursor of 2022 chaos, I am getting a bit worried. How come it is convenient that rigathigachagua can come back, then there is chaos and provocative return at the airport? The tourists were chased away. They could not even, some of them could not board their flights. The members of the public who worked there were scared because of his supporters who came there. They jumped everywhere. That was unfortunate, and we must call it for what it is. If he wanted to come back, he would have come back in a dignified manner, address his supporters, and give them the policy statement that he came with. There was none. We saw violence while the police were trying to quell this. That was unfortunate. I also must say that I condemn in the strongest terms possible the goons that, for one or two reasons, tried to intercept him and his people. That was not necessary. And lastly, Dibal, I want to say, you know, we are talking about corruption. And the questions that we must ask ourselves, they are very difficult questions. Because you see, we are at a time when cases built by EACC, they stall because files are thin. Witnesses, you know, are unprotected. The political class distort the facts, and the result has been always corrosive. Why is it that the ODPP take longer to investigate some of these issues, and when they present their findings in court, their findings cannot hold, and therefore there is no conviction? And where there are convictions, they are isolated. That is the issue we must raise. It is not about William Ruto. Somebody mentioned here, I don't know, William Ruto is the master of corruption. It's not about William Ruto anymore. It's about this country. And the people mentioning that, they're forgetting that their leader, in some of the 11 charges that led to his impeachment, there were issues to do with economic crimes. So it is about the people of Kenya. And I like how Dr. Jambo put it, because it is about the people of Kenya. In my view, Dibal, I strongly believe that the coming together of the two parties, now that Javas, the vice chair, is here, was a good symbol, because the issues that they were being talked about at the parliamentary group were issues of corruption as part of it. In fact, in the 10-point agenda, corruption is part of it, for how to fight corruption. In the NADCO report, where I was one of the assisting technical teams, it was a big issue on how to stop it. So the joint parliamentary group that was co-chaired by President William Ruto and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, in my view, signified a turning point in this country. In fact, it was more than a symbolic theater, because it resets our governance structure. Now that the members of parliament are feeling like, you know, they must mention these names, that are perceived to be corrupt or alleged to be corrupt. That is the starting point. Then came the issue of NGCDF. Again, that is another source of corruption where members of parliament have misused that money to either buy votes or to do funny things. So I think we should be very careful when we discuss this issue. It's not about political contest, but it's about issues of concern. The concern that the people of Kenya have is today they lack, they don't trust the government of the day. Neither do they trust their leaders. So if that is the issue, and we are given a platform here to articulate some of these issues, these are a form of participation that we must take seriously. We must devoid ourselves from political persuasion and take serious issues with this matter. I hold the view that as we go forward, the fight against corruption, whether small as Professor Gitile calls it, or big as the ones that was level against Rigathi and team, we must use all the necessary means to fight corruption. And earlier round I said, and I want to repeat, I said that for us to do this, there are certain things that we must now start thinking about so that we stop or we be seen to be fighting corruption. And number one, I said, in fighting corruption, we have a weak link called the ODPP. The prosecutorial independence and its capacity has been fortified. If we don't strengthen that institution and allow them to be independent from political persuasion, interference, and produce a work that can stand the test in a court of law, then we'll be doing nothing. Secondly, the witnesses that have always come up in big scandals, big corruption cases, how do we protect them so that we move forward without them being targeted in some of these grand corruption cases? And then now we can get to the bottom of the matter. And then thirdly, the use of technology. Today, the government of Kenya has done something that we must appreciate. The procurement, I started by saying that. When you go into the procurement department of the government of William Ruto today, you do e-procurement. Whether you are procuring a paper, you must go through e-procurement. The reason why this is important to me is because technology can narrow discretion in procurement. Things like licensing and frontline service delivery, these digital trails are harder to doctor than paper ones that we have been having before. And finally, Dibal, transparency. I say it here and I repeat. For as long as we have no transparent processes, whether they're in the judiciary, executive, or in the legislature, then we shall be doubting ourselves and our leaders. And that's how you brew corruption. So I submit by saying that all these things we are saying, they might appear political. They might have heavy political sentiments. But at the end of the day, the people of Kenya want to know, how are we moving forward? How are we progressing? Those who call themselves united opposition, if they were in government today, they will be criticized the same. But today, the intention that has been demonstrated by William Ruto to fight corruption, you can call him all names you want, you can call him whatever you want, but he has demonstrated that he wants to fight corruption. The opposition has not given us a counter. What are they saying in fighting corruption? What are the cogent solutions they are offering in fighting corruption? Instead, we're being told of one term, Ruto must go, Ruto is a liar, it was a diversional tactic. What are they telling us? That is what we want to hear, so that we table, ideas, and it is a contest of ideas, not a contest of who shouts loudest, who has got the ability, to get to the strategy of disappearing and coming back and being welcome. No, that's not what we want to hear. We want to see. In my view, I would encourage Senator Cherargei and team. Let them allow the president to come to parliament and give evidence. In fact, he doesn't even need to come. He can send it through a document and it can be tabled in parliament. If those names are investigated and found to be culpable, then the law should take its course. And we would want to see us winning as a people. Because when you take money meant for hospitals, you are actually killing. You should be charged by death. When you take money meant for roads, you are actually killing through road accidents, through bad road. You should be charged by death. When you take money meant for education, you are denying our children opportunity to learn in classes. You should be charged by death. That's what we are saying. So Cherargei and the team, we encourage you. Members of Parliament, we encourage you. And Javas and the team, we want to see you do what you know best, because the implementation of this 10-point agenda and the NADCO report, that is where the solution is. Don't be distracted by people like Ndegwa and Jiru who are telling you are doing nothing. You have the powers of this nation in your heart. Please go ahead and tell Kenyans what must be done, because that is what we want to hear. Those are reports that came from the people. They are concerns of the people, and those people want to see that implemented. It is until then that we can now start saying we are making progress. We cannot go into the next election and we are still talking about Ruto must go. Ruto is a liar. Ruto is corrupt. What are you saying? What are you doing about yourself, about corruption? What are you doing about education? You yourself, what are you doing about uniting people? Or is about fight? We want to see a united nation, a nation that speaks the truth when they have to, a nation that must call it out when it is wrong. And last time I was here and I said, we have a leader. For some of us who subscribe to the Raila Odinga School of Politics, when something is right, he says it. When it is wrong, he says it. He has told President several times on his face that you must stop these killings, you must stop these abductions. And the President committed to stop that. And now we are seeing compensation going to happen. The Professor Makau-led team is going to go and compensate. And we have said from our end that compensation without justice is not enough. We must also go to the bottom of getting justice. So we are saying that all these things require sober minds, and let's allow the country to heal. Let's allow the leaders to change. Let's allow them to work. Even when we criticize, you might not like President Ruto, Ndegwa. For some of me, I didn't even vote for Ruto, but I am convinced that he has managed to bring this country together. All I need for people of Kenya to work together is unity. That's why we can even converge here today. If we were fighting and we are not united, we don't even speak here. So let's give credit where it is due. I submit.
Can I say something?
Thank you, Fred. Yes, Prof. Over to you. I was just coming to you.
Okay.
Prof.
Asante sana. I like the passion that is being exhibited here. I think it's good. It's good for democracy. I want to just explain what I meant when I said about the police corruption. I'm looking at the magnitude, because I compared the police corruption with the parliament. The magnitude here matters. The police, I mean, you are going to Naivasha, you're overspeeding, some fellow stops you, instead of taking you to court, insists on 200 involved. You give him 200, you go to the nearest kiosk, he takes tea. Money circulate, and you, instead of going to spend the day in the court answering into a traffic offense, you can go and do whatever it is. I call this facilitation of commerce. Now, it's the same thing with these members of parliament. They are given 10,000 or 20,000. If you calculate the 10 million, that's nothing. Okay? The biggest corruption is the one done by the executive, by the government. And that's where you need to go. They are moving around the country with the millions, telling us is empowerment. Which budgetary line item can you locate that money? Okay, so what we are saying here is, this is politics. Nobody will be arrested. Nothing will go to that parliament. This was just anti-virtual tactics from very damaging report from the Auditor General on the e-citizen. Okay, very damaging report on millions being wired to non-existent schools. It's very easy to know where that money is going. And you can't tell me that you are doing that without the government knowing. The government knows everything. This is a very strong state. So the other thing, just to correct my friend about motivation theories. In governance, intention is actually completely nothing. If you're going to reward intention, you won't get nobody doing anything. They will tell you that, and just go and read the motivation theories. Now, the president didn't even indicate intention, in my opinion. He's simply playing politics with a bad situation. The situation is impunity. We have cultivated impunity from 1963. Ruto is just part of it. He is not the cause of it, neither will he be the end of it, until as a country we make the decision that this thing is not sustainable and deal with it with the finality. So if he meant well, he would have announced the restatement of all those cases and allow the courts to process them. That didn't happen. Okay? He would tell us where are those millions being wired to schools. Because that's an easy thing to find. Who is receiving the money? Who is wiring it to the non-existent schools? The government will tell us where the 44.8 billion, the one noted again the other day, told us where did the money go. Not just that. How do you buy 104 billion of a program, which is not even a military program, health program? So the point is, we have entrenched impunity. And we don't have a government, a Kenyan government to deal with it. The Kibaki government did not do it, which I consider to be the first Kenyan government since independent. They came, we had the Anglo-Leasing, I think, under Kibaki. We had the Triton, I think, under Kibaki. He didn't go after the crimes committed by Moi administration, crime committed by Kenyatta one. Okay? The other day here, if you look at, you try to look at the debt. Okay? There is nearly 4 trillion. Uhuru Kenyatta can't explain where that money specifically went. So this thing is this political class protecting each other to rob you. And you are here fighting one another. When you should be soberly saying, wait a minute, what you have told us is fantastic, Mr. President. Can you please reinstate those cases you removed? Can you tell us who is receiving the billions and going to non-existent schools? You see that you will help you. But here, whether it's Njeru or my friend Okango, you people, the political class very brilliantly makes you fight here, meanwhile they milk you up there. And as long as we continue thinking that we are the problem, that you on that side, I'm on the other side, there is no side here. You are both very poor people, not seeing that you are being cooked. And one example is the way we change positions. The moment you go into government, everything is fantastic. The moment you leave government, this is bad. I like what Okango said. That is not enough to compensate. That impunity must end. That you have to have prosecutions. And you have to dismantle the systems that allow violations. I think if it's done that comprehensively, we can say that we are starting somewhere. So I would request that let's be sober. I mean, there is nothing personal here. What we need to do is, if it is corruption, let's discuss corruption. Let's not bring manyora. Let's not bring President Ruto. Let's not bring those one who think those are irrelevancies here. They can come during the electioneering period. But right now, we are talking about corruption, and we are saying how it is damaging the country, and we are saying, okay, the president doesn't he want to fight it. That's all he has said, that he wanted to, but he has not done it. So we would like to pressure him, to tell him as citizens, we please would like to see you do it. You can start by telling us where you are getting the money for empowerment, which is, I mean, of course, we know what an empowerment is about to be. It's about to be an investment in education, investment in health. You can't tell me you're empowering a graduate, an engineering graduate, by giving him a car washing machine or giving him Bonda. My friend, are we the best in Bondarines in Africa? You are telling these people that is their level. I mean, they went to get an engineering degree. They went to get a medical degree so that they can become a Bondarindra or an economics degree. So this is what we need to be discussing, because that is a part of corruption. And I agree also with, I don't know if it's Sherenge or someone who said, when you go in and you're espousing policies of another party, that is corruption. It is corruption because it's a violation of law. Any violation of law, in my opinion, is corruption. It's impunity. We should insist on ending impunity conclusively. If Ruto can do it, he won't get my support. Because if he does that, he would have saved this country for future generations. But As it is right now, his intention, and I would like my friend to go and look at the motivation theories. You will understand why in governance, intention is never rewarded. Thank you, Ijiron Duba.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Intention is never rewarded. That is a motivation theory. We appreciate you. Let me just hand over the mic to Ndego Njiru. Then we'll be followed also by Professor Karuti Kanyinga, who's joining us. Ndego, over to you. Any reaction? Remember to unmute.
I can see it
yes,
now.
yes, 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 Dibal.
Continue.
I'm listening to Frederick, and I'm wondering where he's coming from because before the handshake between Ruto and Raila Odinga, Frederick was possessed with enough wisdom to understand what is ailing this country. What is ailing this country is lip service. Mr. William Ruto purporting to address corruption, yet corruption is entrenched in all sectors, as Josephine indicated. So if we were to speak about people and politics and where we are today, we cannot sweep the house or we cannot wash the cup, the inside part alone. Let us wash the entire cup. The other question is the eroding, the collapse of our institutions, the institutions that are supposed to oversee that there is accountability and transparency in this country, they have all been eroded strategically and deliberately, so that actions are not taken by those institutions that have been created. So the withering down of our institution is also a very worrying issue, that they are withering down so that there is nobody who is going to see what is happening. Now, Parliament, the accusation about Parliament, they were to come. William Ruto was fattening them for slaughter. He wants to appear, he's playing politics because he wants to appear. Oh, I called out Parliament. Oh, I would have done this had it not been Parliament. Remember, he's good at pointing fingers at individuals. So it's a campaign strategy that is laying out to show that the failure to deliver all his promises are not attributable to him, but attributable to an organ, to Parliament. So that he may then say, okay, give me an opportunity to try do this. I was failed by Parliament. Parliament failed me. Parliament let me down. So the pointing of fingers to Parliament is meant to try and cleanse and sanitize himself. That is holier than thou, that he has been sabotaged by Parliament, and that had it not been for Parliament, he would perhaps even have implemented even one single promise that he ever gave. So this is calculated. Number two, there could be some individuals who are also targeted by those sentiments. I do not know them, but there are some people who also who Kasongo feels that they should drop along the way. He could be preparing for that because, as indicated, during the impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, money changed hands. It is the money that impeached Rigathi Gachagua, not the grounds on the motion of impeachment. It is money. Senators, Sergei knows very well that they were receiving money left, right, and center. We have been told some were receiving as much as 30 million. None of them has come out to refute. Even when Parliament was accused of receiving money from Kasongo, none of them has come out to refute. So, lisemwalo, lipo. Only that we have to drain the entire swamp. And you cannot speak about draining the swamp of corruption and then you leave William Ruto hanging because again he's the architect, he's a beneficiary, he's the owner of corruption. Finally, we must strengthen our institutions. Stronger institutions delivers stronger democracy. Stronger institutions delivers functional democracy. Stronger institutions delivers democracy that is responsive to the plight of the people. We must delink our institutions from the politics of the day. And then when he goes around and forms what is called the multi-agency bribery or corruption team, he's trying to wither down the institution that has been mandated to investigate corruptions. He's undermining the EACC. And this undermining of institutions is what is leading to the collapse of our democracy. Is it true that EACC had failed so as to require the boosting of the multi-agency? Is there any evidence that they had failed? Is it not that he wants to undermine it? Didn't we listen to the chairman of the EACC leading a prayer at State House during the signing of a certain bill? Didn't we listen to what that man said? Is that a man who has no intention? But the question is, why are they not able to act? They are not able to act because deliberately the authors and the owners of corruption do not want those institutions to work. So the constitution or composition of that so-called multi-agency, which we have managed to stop in court, is meant to undermine the functions of the organs mandated to ensure that corruption is fought. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Ndegwanjiru. I want to invite Professor Karoti. Then we should be bringing it to a close. And I think we have also the people. This is the people in politics. We have them lined up here. I will give them a chance to just also air their views. Western is here. But before I go there, because I think we are focusing on the private sector, on the public sector. I remember I had an interview with Bob Collymore a while back where he talked about the private sector as well. And I've managed to get that particular clip. I wanted to play it so that Professor, also when you're chiming in, you can concentrate on that as well. This is what he had to say. Listen in.
For the public sector to get involved in corruption and bribery, it requires the private sector to fund it. And so I go much further, and I say that the source of corruption is the private sector, whether the private sector in an individual capacity or the private sector in a corporate capacity. I was having lunch with the Chief Justice, Willie Mutunga, a little while ago, and he said to me that apparently in Kenya, there's no word for corruption in the mother tongue, but there's a word for theft and for a thief. And in Kenya, we know how to handle thieves, because if you steal a purse or a handbag, you will be lynched by the mob. Justice will be executed. However, if you're a corporate chief, if you're a chief executive or a finance director, and you steal 1 billion shillings, and we have no end of examples in the newspapers, you will get off scot-free. And as Mugo said, and Joshua says a lot, we admire corruption. We also aspire to corruption. So given an opportunity, we will all get involved in corruption because we point the finger at other people. We don't point the finger at ourselves. And this is why a little while ago, a group of companies came together under this heading of Business Against Corruption in Kenya to sign up to a set of practices which says that not only will we sign the code of ethics, but we will also not work with people who don't sign that code of ethics. In Safaricom, we have actually asked our 350 vendors to each sign the code, and they have to do that by the 15th of March. And if the 16th of March you haven't signed, then you will no longer be a vendor to Safaricom. We've gone further than that, and we form a small coalition. So if you are blacklisted from KCB, you will also be blacklisted from Safaricom. If you're blacklisted from government procurement, you will also be blacklisted from Safaricom. But Mugo makes a very good point that a lot of this is actually lip service. We signed the code of ethics, and we signed the code against corruption, but how many of us actually really live up to it? How many of us exercise consequence management? Safaricom is one of the companies that's very open about it, and often on social media, people say, Safaricom, you're thieves. And we say, yeah, we know that. And that's why we deal with it. And that's why whenever you look at our sustainability report, you'll see that we're exiting people at the rate of just over one a week. And I'm proud to be associated with companies like KCB, who are similarly dealing with this. And even the media often criticizes other people for corruption. But I challenge any media company, we're here at Nation Media Group today, I challenge any media company to tell me that their own accounts department is not involved in corruption. Their own editorial staff is not involved in corruption. Their own advertising department is not involved in corruption. So my plea really is that we start to look inwards. We start to look at our own behavior. We start to look at our own propensity to pay that 500 shilling bribe to the policeman. The day we all are prepared to go to jail, we are prepared to actually have an overnight in jail and not paying a bribe, is the day we will really start to address this corrosive thing called corruption or theft. Thank you very much.
Right. Bob Colimo, the late, there talking about corruption. We had also Mugo Kiberti and Joshua Egara in that particular forum where the topic was all about leadership and integrity. Professor, you've had it. So we've been navel-gazing on the public sector. What do you have to say also on those sentiments about the private sector? It takes two to tango, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes two to tango. But I think the point that Bob Colimo is making is something that we have debated all along, and that is the word to use for corruption. Are the corrupt individuals thieves, or are they corrupt? If you call someone in African culture corrupt, you are giving him badge of honor because he'll be respected, perhaps because he stole and went and took something to the village. He can tell the people that, I was so and so, and they accused me for having taken money to benefit my community. But once you are called a thief, you have nowhere to go. And in fact, I do remember that particular period of Bob Colimo and the discussion with Yuli Mutunga. Some of us argued very strongly that we need actually to be calling the corrupt public individuals thieves. And if you go to court, we don't have, the media should not be talking about someone being accused of corruption. We should be talking about someone being accused of stealing public resources. That's when it can have an impact on the African culture and African attitudes and minds. But corruption itself has got a Western connotation because in many instances, some can argue that actually you are extracting resources from the state for purposes of community benefits. But stealing has got a very different connotation. You are a thief and you are a thief. And this is something we have never been able to create as a language to punish the corrupt, to say that you are a thief. Not that you are a corrupt, but you are a thief because you have stolen public resources and you need to be seen as such. But there is another reason why I wanted to speak on this is we have listened to the discussion everywhere. I mean, from the time we began, and we have not touched on the point that actually corruption has become normalized, that citizens themselves sometimes demand that MPs give them money, or MCAs or governors give them money to vote when they're coming to campaign. Citizens demand now money for to attend campaign rallies, money to go to sit in campaign rallies. Sometimes there is even something they call a listening allowance. So it has become so normalized that people are demanding that the MPs the leaders give them a bribe or give them something. So I'm simply saying that the culture of bribery, the culture of corruption, the culture of lack of integrity has deepened so badly that we need to be discussing about values. The most worrying thing is that parents who are talking up against corruption are the same parents who can even go and get a loan from a bank or from their own circles to help their children steal exams, to help their children steal exams so that they can pass well and get to a good university degree course. We know that it's public knowledge that exams sometimes are sold. We know very well that we have had instances in the past where parents would talk about, where we would be told schools have been accused of lack of integrity during exams. If you look at it very carefully, parents were involved, children were involved, teachers were involved. Look at even placement of children in good schools in this country. It is not the Minister of Education that places children in those places, but you'll find the head teacher, the principal being involved in receiving money so that they can place children in better places. We all know that. So we are simply saying that the culture of lack of integrity or the culture of deteriorating values is so embedded in Kenyan society that we all need to call ourselves to order, including leaders, including citizens. That cannot be done by leaders alone. But of course, leaders have a responsibility to do things right. But leaders can do things right when institutions are working and when leaders are punished for doing something wrong. But even citizens themselves must be called to order. And this is the time we started saying that wrong is wrong, irrespective of who commits that wrong. Because we are here blaming politicians and others without also reflecting on what has been happening to ordinary citizens themselves, because they feel the institutions have failed them. And therefore, the only thing they can do is shortcuts. Now, the third thing I would mention here, Jibar, is that the corruption that hurts the citizen most is corruption that leads to deterioration of public services, whether we are talking about healthcare, access to education, access to medicine, name it. If there is corruption in delivery of services, that's where the ordinary citizen suffers most. And that's where we need to call both the county governments and national government ministries to order. Are there extension services? Are people accessing public services without paying for a fee, without paying something to a public officer? Can people walk into a police station and ask a police station to do ABCD without the police asking for money for fuel? Can one go to a local chief and request for a service without the local chief asking to be facilitated? Those are issues that we need to be speaking about because they are the ones who affect the ordinary citizen most. The abuse of office by politicians, the abuse of office by cabinet ministers, the abuse of office by party officials is something so rampant that it leads to deterioration of services. And this is what we need to start thinking about and correcting. I think there is a need to have a national conversation, a national dialogue that can actually begin building a journey towards how do we ensure that there is integrity in leadership at all levels. Of course, we know Chapter 6 of the Constitution is as dead as dodo. Died long time ago. No one pays attention to it, and yet that's the chapter that should have ensured that we have got better public services and values in whatever we do. Thank you, and over to you, Dibar.
So you're a proponent for the intergenerational conclave?
I don't mind it, but we know what we want as a society. That conclave will not lead to anything because what are we going to? We are going to discuss the same things that we are talking about. We want leaders to be accountable. We want leaders to be prosecuted if they commit an offense. We want ordinary citizens to stop asking for bribes from politicians. So what will the conclave lead to? We know what we want. We want accountable leadership. We want service delivery. We want counter governments that function. We want leaders who don't steal money and who don't abuse their office for self gain. We already know those issues that can actually be put on the agenda. All that we want is an end to these issues that have brought the country to a halt. That will be the conclusion of the conclave.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Let me just, I wanted to open the floor because also time is ticking away from us and we don't want to keep you for long. I want to invite Dr. Weston just to comment on that. Also, I've seen Dr. Josephine, she's back. She'll be able to finish on a train of thought as we're winding up. And then let me just try and see the people who have requested. There are a lot of them, but they dropped off because of time. Okumu Calvin's just also be prepared. And we have BSN Advocate as well. Be prepared. I'll give the mic to you. But Weston, let's hear from you. Good evening.
Good evening, Val. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us.
Good. Dibal, you see, the fight against corruption is a political fight. It's not a legal fight. So invoking a lot of laws and institutions that are there will not help because we're beset by this problem virtually throughout our entire post-colonial period because the previous presidents have never had the political will to fight corruption. In fact, they were invested in corruption. That's why they top when it comes to wealth in the country. So if you want to fight corruption as a president in Kenya, you will have to strive to be effective, not to be right. Right is where people will take you to court. People will politicize what you do, what you say, the same way we're seeing. But you will have to take no prisoners. What does that mean? You will have to jail people, not ordinary people, not police officers on the roads, not school teachers, not people who are, bribing to get their children to get hired in the police service. Top ranking people in the executive, your office of the president, in the legislature, bicameral parliament, in the judiciary, top people in the private sector, the way your clip showed. Then these low-ranking people, you just ask yourself, if a cabinet minister is in jail, who am I? How much power do I have? You just do the right thing. The police officer will just ask himself, if a CEO of a company could go to jail, and not the Waititu kind of going to jail, if they lock you up, you are locked up, and you have to serve that time, ordinary people will have no incentive whatsoever to engage in corruption. For that's what other jurisdictions that have fought corruption successfully done. Lee Kuan Yew said, when he was asked how he successfully fought corruption in Singapore, just jail cabinet ministers, jail your friends, jail your relatives who are caught up in corruption. So ask yourself, if you're a president today in Kenya, would you jail your friends? Would you jail your relatives? Would you jail members of your cabinet? Or would you jail a former president? If the answer is no, then just realize it's hard. So don't even call William Ruto names. It's hard. You must crack the whip. It's that vicious. So look, we're talking about what William Ruto said vis-a-vis Parliament. And there was no revelation in what he said. We know, because that's grand corruption. Grand corruption is corruption at the highest level of government, in parliament, in the executive, in the judiciary, those top organs in the society. But we're discussing as to whether, it's the right thing to do, whether members of parliament can impeach him. Look at the conversation, how convoluted it is. But the other day, when there was a headline, or was it Nation newspaper, about SGR, people are using SGR, the money ends up in the pockets of the Kenyatta family. We behaved as if we had not seen it. We behaved as if that headline was not in Kenya, was somewhere else. No, there was no hue and cry. There was no demand for accountability. You understand? When SGR ended up in somebody's private land using state funds, there was no hue and cry. What a scandal. You understand? What a scandal. So it means we have got holy cows when it comes to the fight against corruption. Holy cows. So in principle, we are not opposed to corruption, Dibal. We are only opposed to people who are profiting from corruption at any one given time in Kenya. If it is a politician you love, you support, you're going to vehemently deny that they're not corrupt. And that's why the likes of Ndegu are here, talking about how William Ruto is corrupt, but they're always drumming up support for Munyoro. And you followed the impeachment proceedings. In a functioning society, those proceedings would have been handed over to agencies for further investigations, for possible criminal charges against him. But here you are. No, the president is corrupt. He's the architect of corrupt. But who do you support? Who do you support? So what corruption do you accede to, and what corruption is it you are opposed to? So we are even duplicitous ourselves in our so-called commitment to corruption. So this president must be courageous, Dibal. He must be courageous to write a society. You don't seek to please people, because politics is divisive. It's about what you want to achieve, and history will judge you either harshly or will absolve you. But if you are caught up in the politics of the day, where people want to supplant you in power, you're not going to move. Political will is what we demand, not more layers and layers of institutions. DPP can only work as effectively as the executive wants that office to work. It's as simple as that. The police can only work as effectively as the executive wants the police to work. The same thing with the EACC, AG, control of budget, the Kenya Revenue Authority. All these are institutions that are supposed to combat corruption, but they must get this unambiguous signal from the office of the president that there are no holy cows in Kenya. No one is untouchable. If they don't get that, they will have to wait. Who do we go after? Who do we spare? So people are talking about ordinary people must read Chinua Achebe's The Troubles in Nigeria. He talks about grand corruption. That is the corruption that has brought Nigeria to its knees. The kind of corruption that has also brought our country to its knees. Because powerful people also control instruments of violence. They control the police. They control the intelligence. They control the army. They control the judiciary. So when they engage in corruption and they cannot be brought to account, that is the corruption that corrodes the body politic, the entire fabric of the society. And small people look at it and say, yeah, it's fair game to engage in corruption. So it must be fought at the highest level. And this president will give him the benefit of the doubt, because when he promised to set up State Capture Commission of Inquiry, and he didn't do it, no one took him to task over that. We all went quiet. In fact, the media asked him and he said, no, it will take much of his time. And that question, there was no follow-up question. Now, he's come up also accusing Parliament of corruption, because we think that he doesn't have what it takes to fight corruption. So who does? Which government will fight corruption? Which government? We have to give him the benefit of doubt. If he proves you wrong, then you can take him to task. But you cannot poo-poo what he's doing simply because you're politically opposed to him. The question is, who is going to fight corruption in Kenya? Uhuru Kenyatta did not do it. Moi Kibaki didn't. Moi didn't. Kenyatta one did not. So you keep on kicking the ball, the can down the road until when? That's the question. So Dibal, as I yield, we need courage. And if you are in any position of power in Kenya, you need courage. This president needs courage to confront these parliamentarians who think that if they are called out for corruption, they can impeach him. That's also being corrupt, because you don't think of impeaching the president when he breaches the constitution that he sought to uphold, but you can think of impeaching him when he calls you out. You are corrupt. You're corrupt. And because he has got more violence, he's going to prevail over you because you stand for nothing. You're very selfish, even in your so-called commitment to corruption. Grand corruption in the bicameral chamber, executive, judiciary, and those other bodies. And it's where the fight must be trained, not in the rest of the society. The rest of the society will just straighten itself. Once corruption is fought, members of parliament go to jail, judges who are taking bribes go to jail, and many other top-ranking people. That's when we'll be moving. And then Dibala as a yield. The burden of proof must shift to you who is accused of corruption. You are a governor. We can tell before you are elected governor how much money you had. How much did you have in terms of property? As a governor, you have served 5 years or 10 years, you've got so much. Could you prove how from your salary you accumulated so much? You, a cabinet minister, before you appointed, you had this much. 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, you are $1 millionaire. Could you prove how you made your money? So the people who are, displaying opulence, wealth in Kenya must actually prove how they made their money. It can't be the one who is accusing who should prove that you are corrupt. No, you who has got so much wealth, so much property, bank accounts, offshore. How much money did you make and what did you do? That is it. Shift the burden of proof to the one who is accused as opposed to the accuser. Then we'll fight corruption. But, the judiciary, DPP, ESCC, no, Dibal, we won't move. We won't move. We need political will that will even disregard some of these things people are doing. Then we're going to move. Otherwise, we're caught up in this cobweb, whether the president is committed, whether he's playing politics, whether there are allegations. What allegations, Dibal? We know parliament is corrupt. It's a question of, you're a member of parliament. Are you corrupt or not? You see, they're talking even as a collective. Criminal matters are not collective. It's individual responsibility. You either take bribes or you don't, as a member of parliament. So say, I don't take bribes. When I participate in the house business, I don't take bribes. But don't say, we don't take bribes. You and who? How do you know? Speaker defend us. The speaker to defend you. Can the speaker vouch for all those members of parliament? How? The president has intelligence about these people. If they want a showdown between him, I can guarantee you they are going to lose because he knows what they do. Whether they take bribes or not, he knows. He has got dossiers on all of them. I yield the ball. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We heard from the Senate that the Speaker said all the senators are squeaky clean. But on the other side of the House, we had also Moses Wetangula saying that some of the legislators there, he has summoned them regarding issues of corruption. And some of them have shaped up. Some of them are still, backed in that particular system. So I think we are yet to know how squeaky clean both houses are. But that one is bound to maybe be revealed much, much later in the course of the year once this fight of corruption continues apace. Thank you so much, Weston. I wanted to give Josephine, I think we lost you at some point, Dr. Josephine. Then we'll hear.
Yeah. Thank you, Dibal. Thank you, Dibal. And my comments be rather short and late as it is in the evening before midnight. Happy birthday, Senator Chiragai. Before it reaches midnight, let me celebrate with others your birthday. And I just want to, in a manner of speaking, close down on what I will contribute tonight. And I want to say that we've heard a lot of submissions on the form of corruption. And we've listened to a rundown on Kenya's history and performance over time when it comes to the elimination of corruption. And indeed, the deficiencies of various leadership and regimes in tackling corruption. And I want to state that there is no country without corruption. And that's not to say that we should be accepting of it. We should work to eliminate it. I also want to say that any great country has within it its ranks of the elite, those who are visionary enough to tackle with corruption and have in their mind's eye the future of their country free from corruption, the development that could be achieved for the populace. However, the problem is, like we've said, that even the elite have their hands in the cookie jar. And that's where we're really letting ourselves down. And I want to appeal to us, even on this call tonight, to come out, to be more forceful in our commitment, make sure that we put it to practice, not just speak of it, but find forums to act. I liked the fact that we decided not to talk just about corruption and corrupt people, but thieves and looters. And I want to thank Professor Karuti Kanyinga for bringing in that very frank way to debunk what we mean by corruption, and therefore that there is nothing to be proud of in corruption. I want to say that I still want us to think about the people of Kenya, because Kenyan looters and thieves are supported by their communities. They're defended. You'll hear people out there saying, you know, don't prosecute him. We know him. Or he has been our leader. We elected him. But you'd be surprised that as much as the community of Kenyans cry out in defense of looters, these looters rarely ever know them and will never actually address their personal, individual, and even community needs. I'd like to point out that it's very rarely that you hear of a woman or women, and I'm not saying they're not involved, but I'm just saying that if you were to look at the percentages, I would speak out for my group of women or for women and say they are more rarely involved in corruption at every level. But I also want to say that as we conclude, no arm of government is free. I like the fact that we're talking about codes of conduct for private sector. And I think it's great that you played back Bob Collymore and that companies should trade only with other companies that abide to the code of conduct. And more than that, that should be visible on their products. I'd like to speak of Rotary, where I'm a member, where we actually have a 4-way test, which looks at ethical practice. I agree, Parliament hasn't denied clearly the presence of corruption amongst the ranks of its membership, but that doesn't mean that the head of state was pointing at blanket condemnation. In fact, I think the head of state is far ahead of us when it comes to thinking about how to tackle corruption and the way forward. He actually has, in a very timely manner, made that pronouncement on corruption just before recess of the House. So definitely it's not blanket condemnation. And I'm sure he knows exactly how he's going to proceed. And I'm very sure it will be individual by individual. Therefore, I think we need to promote citizen participation, citizen education, civic education, and look at civic structures that can engage in fighting the battle against corruption at all levels. And I like Karuti Kanyinga's reference to a national meeting. And I think the national meeting, the conclave, is very useful. It may not address new issues, but we will provide a forum where citizens can come to the table, in quotes, as equals with leadership and speak about their concerns for the way forward for Kenya. That's very, very important. I cannot underscore that even more. I want to, again, look at other places where we've seen it happen. I want to speak about Guyana, where a national conclave put in place made it possible for the Afro-Guyanese to take office when the Indo-Guyanese had their hands full from the coffers in oil and were obstructing President Granger to take power. You can look around the globe and find very many other examples of how putting people together at a table can balance issues, including that of corruption, and allow the voice of people to carry the day. I think the issue about accountability is important, and prosecution. Whatever we can do to promote more prosecution, let's get it done. But with that, the rebuilding of our eroded institutions, this needs to take place not just into the future, but even now. We need a focus on ensuring that the trust and confidence in government continues to be restored and is restored going forward. Thank you very much, Debal, for this wonderful debate. I want to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Josephine. And I want to just invite BSN advocate briefly, kindly, brevities of essence, so that we can wind up mapema because of time as well. Thank you.
Can I be allowed to make closing remarks?
Yeah, we're just about to make it, Senator. I know I've kept you for long. If you may just hang on so that we may just hear from the plenary. Maybe they could have a question for you as well.
Okay, because I can see time is far much spent.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So I'll just make it brief. We just want to hear from BSN and Eva as well. I think those two, then we're done. And then we get closing remarks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Debal. So my name is Clinton Okelo, and I'm here to represent 306 revoked nurses who are revoked recently by the CS Honorable Duale. So what is happening at the Ministry of Health is totally unacceptable, and it is poor corruption. 306 qualified nurses interns were already deployed and worked for a full month, only to be revoked over political conferment ceremony. So for years, people have been posted in internship on the basis of completion of coursework. And according to the policy, it is to be posted after 1 month before the end of 60 days, notwithstanding graduation. So for us, we are just awaiting graduation. I completed my coursework last year and I passed, and I was verified by the Senate board that I am eligible for graduation, which we normally have only one graduation, and my graduation is on December, and I was already posted after being verified by the Nursing Council and the Ministry of Health. So we were revoked recently by Honorable Duale on the basis of not having graduated, because the ministry wanted to cover up the mess that was already in place, since they failed to post some other 339 eligible nurses interns who are the backlog of last year, whom they failed to post last year. So meanwhile, at the posting list, we can see like we have ghost workers who have been smuggled into the 2025 BSN nursing internship program. And we are wondering, also we can see some names appearing in duplicate. So Afia House has been turned into Mafia House, and the Parliamentary Health Committee is asleep on this matter. Duale is twisting policy, is just waking up saying like only those who have graduated are eligible for internship, and according to the policy, notwithstanding graduation, someone is posted for internship as long as he has been approved by the Senate of his institution. One of the requirements which the Ministry of Health wanted is that if you don't have a graduation certificate, bring original letter of completion, of which we brought, and it was verified and we were posted. I myself, I come from Momabi. I was posted as far as Isiolo County, and I worked for a whole month, only to be revoked after 1 month after investing time, money, and energy. So what is happening at the Ministry of Health, like, it is totally unacceptable. We are in total debt. We just want some help, because Duale is twisting policies, like he's coming up with his own policy. If he wants to come up with a policy, there's a procedure. There's a procedure instead of interfering with the policy that has been there for over 10 years. So it is a theft, because we can see ghost workers in the list. So we want this issue to be published, because we can see ghost workers, some names are in duplicate. So we just want the 306 nursing officer interns to be reinstated, because according to the Article 55 of the Constitution, the state is mandated to ensure that all youth get access to relevant education and training. And internship is part of training. Internship is not employment, and internship is not a privilege. It is our right. Right now, in order to get licensed, I cannot be licensed minus internship. So meaning, a program that was supposed to take not more than 5 years is going to take me 7 years in order to be licensed. Why is the government like the government is producing what it doesn't consume? Because a lot of us BSNs, we normally study in Kenya, but afterward there's no job for us. We only go and seek jobs outside the Kenya in other states whereby like their government had already created opportunity for them. For us youth, we are remain jobless and unemployed, and we want this issue to be addressed once and for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Okello. We feel your pain, and we hope the 366 nurses will be reinstated. I will advise you, maybe we can tune in next week. We'll try and get Dr. James Jikalu, who's the chair of the Parliamentary Health Committee. He might be able to address your issue so that we can get a way forward. I don't know if Senator Cherogay, you wanted to chime in on that, but I'll just give you a moment later once we hear from Eva. Eva Ikwom, I yield the mic to you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much. I'm Eva Ikwom, and I wanted to say something on corruption. Okay. So, first of all, I'll say Kenya doesn't lack laws, it lacks teeth and consequences. And is corruption treatable in Kenya? Yes, it is. Let me break it down. Okay. In Parliament, the Parliament has the power of oversight, but corruption thrives there. MPs often trade loyalty for money or position, in which we all know. Watchdog committees sometimes protect those they should expose, right? And can it be treated? Yes, but only if the parliament reforms itself by enforcing internal accountability and transparency. But the reality check is that parliament often mirrors the executive's will. So it is more of a political theater than a real cure. And every president has promised to fight corruption. Let's break it down to our previous presidents. Moi used anti-corruption rhetoric but protected loyalists. Kibaki set up KCC, but scandals like Anglo leasing still thrived. Uhuru declared corruption is eating. He stated corruption is eating us like cancer. But mega scandals like Eurobond, COVID funds happened under him. Let's talk about Ruto, our present president. He promised to end the state capture. But how the critics argue, he has rewarded allies and cartels instead. Therefore, corruption is, in my own opinion, corruption is a cycle mirroring previous regimes. It's the same playbook. So how can it be tackled? Are they supposed to use hard structural changes and not daily or frequent speeches? Because speeches are not going to stop corruption, then it's not going to treat corruption. So my question was, how are we going to tackle corruption? Because continuous speeches and talks cannot change corruption in this country. Thank you so much.
Yes, a probing question there. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eva Ikwon. Senator Cherugay, I'll give you a handy opportunity now to give us a closing remarks, and Dr. Josephine as well. Then we call it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dibal. And first time is first spent, and tomorrow is on a Monday, and there are many committees tomorrow. And of course, we are preparing for the impeachment proceedings from Wednesday to Friday against charges facing the Kericho governor. And just for educative purposes, many people should know that the Senate does not impeach. The impeachment is done at National Assembly and the county. So Senate just confirms charges, and the Senate is only a trial chamber. On the issue raised by my brother, I was of the opinion on 306 nurses. And we have had a discussion with KUKO and other unions that fight for their rights. I met CS Douala and I asked him, what was this all about? And I'm told there was corruption also in posting of these interns, because the interpretation is what is completion? What is completion? Does it mean you have completed your course without graduation. So and we hope, and I hope, as you invite the chair of health, he should say it like, but any person who wants to know what completion is, of course, it can never be completion without graduating, having a graduation ceremony. Even us who practice law, even if you have qualified from Kenya School of Law and you have been cleared by CLE, until the day you are admitted to the bar, then you can be allowed to practice as an advocate. So we are the bar on the issue of completion. I also try to discuss with the CS of Health. I have discussed the issue is, I'm told there is corruption, and the CEO in charge of placements of interns has already been fired. And I hope, because today I met even an intern who come from my county, Nandi, but she has been posted all the way to Nyeri, and they had spent all the resources. So I hope that matter should be. It's also the disease called corruption. On the fight against corruption, as Parliament, I want to say in conclusion that we are willing and ready to ensure we push for any legislative and policy intervention to assist in the fight against corruption in all sectors, not only Parliament, judiciary, executive, and counties, and even private sector. I want to appeal to Kenyans and distinguished colleagues of panelists. The fight against corruption will be won only if we do not personalize corruption. We fight it as a united front. The way we supported Arambe Stars the other day during the Chan Championships, we should come together and have a concerted effort. Finally, I want to challenge EACC, and I know my committee has invited them, that instead of calling for press conferences to tell us what they are doing, it is better if they act fast so that they communicate later. And we have, having sat in park, I want to go, the lady who spoke just before I spoke, I want to appeal to Kenyans, the BAL, with a lot of tremendous respect. Parliament, we do and adopt so many reports, including recommendations. As a member of Public Accounts Committee, which I have sat for the last 8 years, I can quote a number of reports, including my own county, that we have recommended the EACC, DCI to investigate with a view of prosecuting senior county government officials. And I saw your colleagues in the media pointing that the DPP is the weakling against the fight against corruption. I want to challenge any Kenyan who is here to go and look for the reports that we pass and adopt as a house. You know, it is not fair to be condemned and hard. As Parliament, we have done our part. The BAL, and I said in your show when I appeared in your station, that the perception outside there, the perception outside among Kenyans, and I want to request Kenyans with a lot of tremendous respect, is that Parliament is supposed to investigate and prosecute. Parliament can only recommend. What does that mean, Rebal? We recommend to EACC, they go ahead and investigate with a view of transmitting that file for prosecution in any crime to DPP, because DPP is independent, the police is independent, EACC is independent, the DCI, which is under command of the police, is independent. So Kenyans should separate that the only power that Parliament has can investigate and recommend. And I'm happy you are one of the seasoned journalists in this country and you cover. I want to request Kenyans, before we condemn even the institutions, we should go back and say in the answer, and you know everything we do in Parliament is kept for posterity from 63 up to now. You can just go and retrieve a report. In the last session, we recommended for prosecution of individuals during the rip-off of medical leasing equipments to counties, which were losing millions of shillings. We recommended for investigation and prosecution. In my own county, Nandi, in last year, the EACC came, took away the computers over payroll scandal because Nandi spends 3.98 billion in a year to pay wages. And they have taken like a year plus, yet they have never arrested anybody. They have never taken statements. And the payroll had individuals who are ghost workers and even clone relatives of the leadership of the county governor among the people who are being hired. I can name even in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Nairobi, There are so many cases of corruption. So it behooves now, and that is why we have invited, and I want Kenyans to follow that day on 11 September 2025, we have invited EACC, DCI, and DPP to appear before our committee as a we want to know where the weakling is. When the file is being finished by EACC and being forwarded to DPP, first, have they made sure that it's a prima facie case before being taken for DPP for prosecution? Because there is a weakling somewhere in the fight against corruption. We must, if we want to fight corruption, the accountability agencies, which by the way, we appropriate budget for them. It is Parliament that gives budget to EACC. It is Parliament that gives budget to DPP. It is the budget that gives police, which is under the command that commands DCI, and they are all independent commissions. Article 79 has given powers to EACC. And I want to disagree with Professor Naituli as I conclude on the formation of MAT. I remember when I was the chairperson of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights in the last Parliament, the last Senate, we used to have MAT then that was chaired by Kihara Kariuki. If you read at the objectives of presidential proclamation on the aspect of formation of multi-agency team, it is more of a coordinated, to have a synchronized way of exchanging ideas on how to better the fight against corruption. Just the way you have colloquium of justice, is it called, where you having justice forum, where you normally have DPP, DCI, the Chief Justice, and everybody. So the objectives of that presidential proclamation was a way of having a more coordinated and exchange, so that if DCI, for example, if DPP, VACC needs more resources, how can they have a united front to push for more allocation of resources? What are the challenges? So it was not in any way, I want to correct the perception. And it's unfortunate that Justice Namuye issued an order against the establishment, because if you look at the objectives, it was not about to direct any agents, any commission from DPP, DCI, and EACC. So that one should go on record, and I agree with you that the president has executive power to demand some things to happen. Because the same people, in conclusion, with a lot of tremendous respect to my panelists and colleagues, is if the president keeps quiet and does nothing about assisting in the fight against corruption, the same people will complain and say, why is the president keeping quiet and there's corruption? But when the president becomes creative using his executive power by saying, okay, the corruption is a problem in this country, what do? Let's have a coordinated engagement of exchange of ideas on how we can better the work of fighting against corruption. That one does not mean is directing any agencies to do anything. So Dibal, we can have this conversation. Let this one be the beginning. We can have this conversation on and on and on again, so that we can go into the future. And I remember my brother, in conclusion, I think he has left to work in Ndegwa. In future, I agree, but let us remember this country is one. This country we need cohesion. The BAL, I always argue, and we have been with you on many platforms, that there cannot be human rights. There cannot be justice without peace. I hear people saying, I heard them saying, talking about human rights. How can you talk about human rights when there is no peace in the country? How can you talk about development when there is no peace in the country? So let us also be fair and factual, so that Kenyans can understand that we have a way of ensuring that the fight against corruption is. I welcome any remarks. I welcome any ideas that the distinguished panelists and colleagues who have been following this conversation, if they think there is a way we can do as parliament to address the menace of corruption, I am willing. And I want to confirm again that I want, and we hope the president will be able to know who these individuals are, so that even in my colleagues, I would want them to resign and be prosecuted. So with those many remarks, God bless you. Have a lovely good night. Have a beautiful week. And let us wake up tomorrow. Let's keep building this nation for a better society and a prosperous future. I yield.
Thank you so much, Senator. Once again, we really do appreciate you also just hanging on until this time. I know you have a busy program tomorrow, and thank you for the good salutary effort that you put in the Senate. We really do appreciate. And again, happy birthday. be it belated one. We wish you many more like this.
And my M-Pesa line is open, eh? My number is 0723. My M-Pesa line is open. Thank you, sir, and God bless you and good night.
We'll send you 100 bob. That will amount to much. Yeah. Good evening. Thank you so much. Have a restorative sleep. Professor Gitile, Professor Gitile, briefly, your closing remarks?
Yeah, let me say that the fight about corruption, or what you can legally say theft by servant, is simply attacking impunity as a whole. We have cultivated impunity. We have made it our culture. We need to dismantle it because the society will collapse. This is not sustainable. I think that is good. I wish everybody a lovely evening. I mean, good night, and have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Dr. Josephine, your closing remark, very briefly.
Thank you very much, Dibal, Senator, professors, friends, and colleagues. Mine is very short. Again, like Senator said, I recall the tide of joy and pride that we witnessed at the stadium when Harambee Stars played the soccer matches in the last week. With that same pride, let us hold together our country, Kenya, and let's hope for and put in place a better tomorrow for the country. And how? Let's look carefully at the community of Kenyans. Smart leaders from within government, the three arms of government, smart leaders from private sector, smart leaders from community organizations would realize that the community of Kenyans must be brought on board this war against corruption. In fact, if they are, it will be easier to actually undertake everything that we have discussed this evening. So let's not kick about this corruption ball in the same spirit. It's a football. Let's not just keep kicking it up and down. Yeah. Let's not politicize this fight against corruption. No more excuses. I think we have summarized what needs to be done. Those who have leadership, those who are able to communicate to the leadership, it's time to get to work, and let's support our head of state in the war against corruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's support everyone who is putting a spirited effort to stanch the flow of corruption in this country. I want to thank each and every one of you that has contributed to this. Senator Cherugay, thank you so much. I want to also thank all that were here. Fred Okango, who was here as well. Ndegonjiru, who was here. Professor Kanyika Karitu, Professor Gitile Naituli. I want to thank you so much. We were expecting to be joined by the senator here of Meru, who is, where is he? This is Kaduri, but he was a no-show today. I tried to reach him. So for them that are saying we did not really have a balanced panel, I wanted to tell you also Dr. Makali Mulu was meant to be here, so he was a no-show. Sometimes if they don't really show up, then you have a skewed balance, as you are alluding to. I could see some of us being bashed here. But nonetheless, the conversation continues. I want to thank also who else? Dr. Josephine Ojambo, Ambassador. Thank you, Balozi. I really appreciate your support. And I thank you so much also for hanging on until this time. We don't want to go beyond time. For everyone that has joined us this evening, I want to say thank you. May you always have a restorative night. And in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, in all things, charity, as they will say. Professor Masharia Munene, I see you. Thank you for hanging on. I tried to mic you up, but I think today you wanted just to knock back your whiskey in a polite way. So thank you so much. For all of you, may the good Lord multiply your peace this evening, on this week as well. May grace, mercy, and peace be multiplied to you this week. Have a very successful week. As always, as we say, may the good Lord guide you. May he be a pillar of cloud by day to guide you and a pillar of fire by night to protect you. For that, I want to say thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.